if we look at the theme of that's really been standing out throughout this whole weekend, is the question of the crisis of capitalism, and the fact that 2020 has been the year of the crisis of world capitalism and a real turning point in the accelerations of events on a world scale. In the US, we had the largest movement in the history of the country with the Black Lives Matter protest. We had a very long electoral period that culminated in the most chaotic election, I should say, perhaps in US history, even more chaotic than 2016, if that was even possible. And all of this happening against the backdrop of a deadly pandemic and the worst crisis, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, at least since the Great Depression, again, on a world scale. So with all of this, I think it was very important for us to organize this event, which allows us to get together and not get depressed or demoralized by the scope of this crisis, but rather to draw a balance sheet and take a step back, which allows us to really understand the significance of the period that we're living through, which is indeed a period of crisis and confusion and chaos, but it's also a period of revolution. And this is very exciting for us, that we shouldn't speak of revolutions as something far away in the horizon anymore. Social explosions are happening now worldwide, but this process of revolution that seemed to be foreign to the US has also arrived in this country. It's not something abstract anymore, but rather a very concrete perspective that we must urgently prepare for. And so I'd like to start, what can we do as socialists to ensure that we would have a successful revolution? And one thing that I'll definitely say, I'll start with, is that as individuals, there is nothing we can do. Really, we can't really have an impact if we're atomized and we're individuals. Like Karl Marx said, he said that the working class, when it's atomized and as individuals, we're nothing but raw material for exploitation. But it is when we unite in struggle and we organize that we have the power to transform society. So if you consider yourself a socialist, if you liked what you heard during this event and you haven't yet taken the step to become active in an organization, now is the moment to join. I believe a link will be posted in the chat. If you haven't yet taken the step to click on that link, write us and join our organization. I would say that, if you're not convinced that you want to join, write us anyway, because we'll discuss with you and we'll make sure that you do, because we think that there's never been a better time to be an organized revolutionary socialist active in the movement in the United States and worldwide. To go a little bit into what the IMT is and who we are, the IMT is a revolutionary Marxist organization, and we're the US section, a socialist revolution, the US section of the IMT. And as an international organization, we don't have this in our name just because we like the sound of it. We are truly an international organization that's organizing with sections and with members and sympathizers active in over 50 countries around the world. Our website, Marxist.com, which is the international website, is translated into 50 different languages, and it receives tens of thousands of views every day, which really goes to show basically that the ideas of Marxism have a very broad reach, and that people around the whole world are looking for what we have to say about the current state in the world. If we look at the reach of our ideas and of our organization, earlier this year we organized an event internationally, the International Marxist University, for which we had 6,500 people registered, I believe, from over 115 different countries. So if we're organizing and active in about 50 countries, there's a whole range of countries there that shows that people are following us, the work that we're doing, even though they haven't yet taken the step to get involved, which I think is very, very significant. In the United States, we have comrades in more than 60 different cities and towns, which means that 1/3 of the US population lives in an area with an active IMT presence. And actually, if it's possible right now to share a map, we actually have a map on our website, which shows all the areas where we have comrades. Every single sort of red star dot represents a place where we have a presence. if you scroll up a little, you can actually see we even have comrades in Alaska, all the way up there, which is not very convenient to show because it's really, really far up north. But we also have very strong presence in in the coastal parts, which is where the most important cities, the most populated cities are. But we're also growing in parts that in the past, would be considered more rural or more backward. Like, for instance, in the South, we have new branches and new members in places such as Raleigh, North Carolina. We have new members in Florida, which is very significant, as well as important cities in Texas, Atlanta, Georgia. And this, again, a place that usually would be considered backwards or conservative, but that we've seen in the last period has actually been on the forefront of the labor struggles with the teacher strikes and so on, and also areas of the country where there's huge interest in socialism and socialist ideas. And I just want to add that obviously we're still growing. We don't have members in every single city. You can see actually North Dakota is the state where the organization first started, with just one person in Fargo, North Dakota. And we don't currently have any members in North Dakota, which is unfortunate, but we're going to turn this around. Every day there's people requesting to join the organization. So if you don't see a dot in the place where you live, we will provide resources. We will have, we will discuss with you to make sure that you have the knowledge and the help to be able to build in that part of the country. And also there's online calls and reading groups that you can join to learn more. So again, click on that link if you're interested in learning more. And I think that, if we look also at our online material and the reach that we have in the United States, we have a bookstore called marxistbooks.com, which has tripled in sales volume since the last year. We also have our website, socialistrevolution.org, which has tripled in views since last year. And again, this really shows that there's a growing interest for a revolutionary perspective and socialist solutions to the problems that we're facing, the problems of capitalism in the US. But I also think it has something to say about the fact that we place a strong emphasis on ideas, on the question of theory, and of really understanding the processes that are taking place right now, studying history, past events, studying current events, to make sure that we have a solid grounding and that we're able to develop perspectives and apply that theory. This is not an academic exercise, but rather take that theory and apply it to the living movement and connect with it on the basis of Marxism. And just to provide some examples, for instance, if you look at the Bernie Sanders movement, this was obviously a very significant moment in the political landscape in the US. And it's someone who called himself a socialist or democratic socialist, who talked about a revolution against the billionaire class. And many people on the left endorsed him as a Democrat, even though we know, we had a whole session on it yesterday, the Democratic Party is a party of the capitalist class. And actually, you see what happened, how his campaign ended, precisely because he was running in a capitalist party. You had others on the left that denounced him because he was too soft. He was a social democrat, not a perfect socialist, and because he was a capitalist, and they wanted nothing to do with this movement. Whereas we recognized, of course, some of the weaknesses in his program, but also the significance of what he represented, the fact that he was talking about socialism, and most importantly, the fact that he had a large base of followers, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, who considered themselves socialists. And so we participated in his rallies, and we did so in a way where we put forward our program front and center, and we were actually able to, on this basis, first of all, to win over a lot of Bernie supporters to revolutionary ideas, but also when Bernie dropped out of the race, we weren't demoralized, we weren't sad, we understood the process that had been taking place since 2016, and we had an explanation for it and a way forward for the movement. And so we published an article, we published a video on the night or the day after that he dropped off the race, and hundreds of people wrote us asking to join on those days following his announcement, precisely because we had a position that connected with the mood, and they could see our track record on this, that we had maintained a principled position on the question of the socialist movement and the Bernie Sanders phenomenon. Now, obviously, the Black Lives Matter movement was a very important moment, the most important movement in the US. And all the cities where we had comrades and all the towns where we had comrades, we've participated in those protests. At the height of the movement last summer, we participated in over 100 different demonstrations across the whole country. We handed out thousands of leaflets. We sold hundreds of magazines, which shows that I think that the movement was looking for ideas and is looking for a programmatic way forward. And so when we participate, of course, it's very important as socialists that we are participating in these protests, in these movements, that we stand in solidarity. But we also think it's very important that we're not just there as bodies, but actually bringing ideas and bringing a program that, in our opinion, provides a way forward for the movement. And so, unfortunately, the movement had no leadership that, for instance, provided a way to connect this movement with the broader working class. So we put forward the idea of the need to form neighborhood self-defense committees so that organized labor would join the movement and actually stand in defense of Black lives and against police violence, and generally for the labor movement to join the call for a general strike to paralyze society in solidarity with BLM against racism, against police violence. And in our opinion, these are the kind of ideas that, if they're put forward by an organization large enough, by a force with connections in the movement, they can provide a real way forward. They can provide a channel to take all this energy and eventually really transform society, which is what is needed if we are going to put an end to all the evils that we live through under capitalism. And so you can see in these examples, that as the IMT, the socialist revolution here in the US and worldwide, we aim to be a transmission belt for revolutionary ideas and for a socialist program that can reach the broader working class. And of course, we are starting with those layers that are already moving in that direction, with those who are already open to socialism, who are already looking for revolutionary ideas, which is a very sizable portion of the US population. But we understand that eventually it's the whole of the working class that needs to have this program and that needs to understand the need for transformation of society. And so we put forward for instance, we say that it's possible to have quality, affordable housing, and by putting an end to all evictions, and by nationalizing all the foreclosed and vacant homes and capping rent at 10%. We think it's possible, absolutely possible right now, to have free, universal, quality healthcare if we nationalize the health insurance companies, we nationalize the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industries. We take that out of the hands of the capitalists and let it be controlled by the medical workers themselves. We think that we can reverse the process of climate catastrophe if we take all the energy production, transportation industries, and so on into public ownership and run it in a way that is reconcilable with the needs of the planet and the needs of humanity. And if we actually also guarantee the retraining and employment of all those workers that work in those industries currently. So we say all of this is possible now. The money and the resources to achieve all this can be found in all the main companies, in the Fortune 500 companies in the United States, which account for 2/3 of the country's GDP, but they need to be nationalized. They need to be put under workers' control so that those resources are serving the interests of the majority of the population and the entire world, instead of the interests of a tiny minority of exploiters and ultra-rich. And this is the program that, if you visit our website, you can find the program there. We have that program on the backs. I wish I had a copy of the magazine here, but somehow I don't. But you can find this program in the last page of Socialist Revolution. And when we are out in the streets doing outreach, talking to people about socialism, it's a program that's understood by everyone, not just by socialists. You can talk about these points with quote unquote regular workers. And it seems reasonable to most. It seems reasonable to everyone, and they agree with the need for this. Maybe the only point where they're unsure is they like it, but they're not sure exactly how it could be achieved. And that's the key, is that once the workers comprehend the power that we have as a class, that workers are the ones who make society run, that workers are the ones who create all value. It's the founder of our organization, Ted Grant, said that not a phone rings, not a wheel turns, not a light bulb shines without the kind permission of the working class. Once this enormous power is mobilized, no force on earth can stop it. And this is very powerful. Once this happens, a program that explains how that power can be used to transform society becomes very concrete, and it becomes very meaningful and can connect with the workers in a very, very concrete way. And so we aim to have an organization in the US and worldwide that is sinking roots in the working class, that is systematically putting forward a revolutionary socialist program in every neighborhood, in every workplace, every factory, in every university, everywhere, and to win over the working class to a revolutionary socialist program, so that when the moment is right and when revolution is on the agenda, that the working class actually sets itself to seize political power, to form a workers' government that brings all the key levers of the economy under control to dramatically improve the standard of living of the whole of humanity. And so, again, this is what the international Marxist tendency is building. This is what we're trying to do, not just in the US, but in a lot of different countries around the world. And I think it's very important. We've been saying that this process of capitalist crisis is an international process, and revolution in just one country can actually, set off a chain of world revolution that we need to be ready for. And that's why it's important that we are building in all these different places. And so with that, I am very happy to announce that we have a series of speakers, organizers from all the different countries where we have a presence with the IMT. Obviously, not all the countries where we have members are actually represented here, because that would take far, far too long. But we do have 12 speakers lined up who will provide a perspective for and a vision of what the IMT is doing in those respective countries. And so with that, we're going to start with Karen Campos, who's an organizer with La Izquierda Socialista, which is our Mexican section, and she's also the coordinator of the League of Revolutionary Women. Just gave an excellent presentation on the question of the struggle for women's emancipation. So Karen, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Well, we send you revolutionary greetings from La Izquierda Socialista, Mexican section of the International Marxist Tendency. Well, during the pandemic, a large number of opportunities have been opened for the development of the section. Workers, young people, and women are looking for explanations for the increase in violence and the decrease of quality of life, which we have been able to take advantage. Well, also clarity in ideas is part of the success we have had during this last year. Our section has doubled. We started with the year with 72 members, and until today, we are 140 members. We have also extended our influence in the north and the south of the country. Now we have 14 branches in Hidalgo, Querétaro, Quintana Roo, Puebla, Oaxaca, Veracruz, Mexico State, and Mexico City. And in the same way, in our intervention platforms, we have been extended. The growth and new members are allowing us to participate in the development of the student, women unions, and Morena's party work. And we have held seminars and reading groups for each platform. We have incorporated young comrades to the organization leadership in order to promote more work and to prepare new cadres who can help to the organization new development needs. And also with the growth we have had, it will give us the possibility of hire a new full-timer. Well, Mexico is going through a new stage. For the first time, we have a leftist, reformist government, which is applying popular aids policies while trying to negotiate with the bourgeoisie. The government project that AMLO intends to implement will not be able to be carried out given the conditions of the world economic crisis. So this will open new opportunities for the ideas of revolutionary Marxism when reformism shows its clear limitations and impossibility to improve the quality of life of the workers. Also, the right wing and the Mexican bourgeoisie is fighting against Lopez Obrador government. They have the economic power, but they don't have the mass support. So they are waiting patiently for the best moment to attack the government of the fourth transformation. Right now, there is a great flight of capital, and they refuse to invest in the country to accelerate the economic crisis. They are using as a banner the struggle for the demands of the working class, because they know that these demands cannot be solved under capitalism. So they use this to discredit the government. We have to fight back this infiltration of the right wing, but also we must explain the limits of reformist policies and the need to fight against the capitalist system. And well, it is our revolutionary duty to be prepared to be able to intervene and win the vanguard of the working class to fight for socialism in Mexico and in the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thanks again for joining us today. And I think it's very important, too, that we continue this collaboration between the Mexican section and the US section, which obviously has a very deep connection. There's a lot of Mexicans or Mexican immigrants that live in the United States, and it's going to be very important for us as we grow and develop our work in the Spanish language that we maintain this relationship. So thanks again, Karen. The next speaker that we have lined up is Adam Pal from Lal Salam, which is the the Pakistani section of the International Marxist Tendency. So Adam, if you're ready, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Jordana, and thank you to all the comrades of the US section for a marvelous event they are holding over the weekend, and has been a huge success. And congratulations from Pakistan. Pakistan is a country in South Asia, which, along with its neighbor Afghanistan, has suffered a lot from the attacks of US imperialism over the last many decades. And it is very enthusiastic to see US comrades struggling against those imperialist policy, against that capitalist system in the belly of the beast. And we extend our best wishes for our US comrades for this international solidarity and for a socialist revolution inside this beast, which has always been sponsoring wars, terrorism, and reactionary forces, dictatorships, and military coups inside Pakistan and across the whole world. Here in Pakistan, the forces of IMT are growing a lot, and we have branches, 72 branches across the country. And despite very extremely difficult conditions of back infrastructure, poverty, unemployment, comrades are determined and enthusiastic and working very hard to build the forces of Marxism and carry out a socialist revolution in this backward country of the world. And in recent years, especially during the pandemic, the infrastructure and especially the unemployment has risen to unprecedented levels, and poverty and malnutrition and people dying because of lack of healthcare and other basic facilities has increased huge, and hundreds of thousands are dying due to lack of clean water and other diseases and many other things. Similarly, the crimes against women, about sexual harassment, rape, and murder has increased manifold, and there have been huge protests against that. And the most important development in recent months have been the re-emergence of a workers' movement across the country, and workers themselves are organizing on a national level and organizing big protests. On 6th of October, there was a huge protest in Islamabad, the capital of the country, where around 25,000 or 30,000 workers from all over the country came to give a sit-in, and they were belonging to different government departments and protesting for the against attacks on pensions, attacks on wages and jobs by the government. And we are intervening, IMT is intervening in this worker struggle across the country, and are participating in protests and demonstrations of the workers from like dozens of departments in different cities. We are present around 30 cities across the country, and are building branches and work. Similarly, our youth work is progressing a very good speed, and we have presence in almost all major universities across the countries, building branches, and our youth front is getting a lot of support from uh, students and with issues like rise in fees and against other student issues. And there's a ban on student unions in Pakistan for last many decades, and there have been protests around that. So against all odds, comrades are working in extremely difficult conditions. Our women work is growing a lot. We have now 85 women members across the country, which is a big development in this backward country where women are the most. If you see the index, world index of the situation of women in the world, so Pakistan is on the last numbers around in 140 countries. So about the plight of women. So comrades are intervening in all those movements and protests against these attacks. And we are producing Marxist literature in Urdu language, publishing papers, books, and in Sindhi language also we have published a recent book about the relevance of Marxism today. Similarly, we have websites marxist.pk and progressiveyouth.net in Urdu language, which are updated very regularly and visited by hundreds of people every day. And similarly, we have launched an online TV channel called Mazdoor TV or Worker TV, which has got tremendous response from workers. And we have recently have seven TV show series of 7 programs about the Russian Revolution, on different topics about Russian Revolution and women, Russian Revolution and national question, and other issues were discussed, and impact of Russian Revolution on India and all that. It got also tremendous response, and thousands of people viewed that series. But there are, despite all these things, there have been huge attacks by the Pakistani state against IMT in Pakistan in recent years, and there have been arrests and there have been abductions in Pakistan. It is very become very common that rather than arresting political workers, the state agencies, secret services abduct the political workers and keep them, detain them in their undisclosed places, and where they are severely tortured and are asked to confess crimes they have not committed. So some of the comrades have been arrested and tortured and abducted in recent months. Thus, like Comrade Amin was abducted from Karachi a few months ago in July, and then there was a huge international campaign after which he was released. On 8th of November, just last week, one of our comrades, a Sindhi comrade from Jamshoro near Hyderabad, was abducted by the state agencies, and his whereabouts are still unknown. And there have been huge protests across the country by comrades of Progressive Youth Alliance or Red Workers Front in around a dozen cities across the country to demand his release, or if he has committed any crime, he should be presented in any court of law. But so far, police, courts, and any other state institution is not giving us any information about his whereabouts or where he is, or is there any charge against him or anything else. So far he is one of the hundreds of missing persons in Pakistan who are mostly political workers, journalists, political activists who raise voice against dissent. So there are hundreds of missing persons in Pakistan, languishing in Pakistani with the Pakistani state forces, or what opposition parties in Pakistan call a state above the state, which do not follow any laws or constitution or any courts or legal procedures. So we also appeal to the workers of the world once again, to the comrades in United States, to raise voice against these injustice, this oppression, this abductions by the Pakistani state agencies, in which the victims are extremely tortured. In the cases previously happened with our comrades. Our comrades were extremely tortured with electric shocks on their bodies, beatings, severely beatings, hanging upside down for long hours, and whatever torture you can imagine. They were treated like that, and many people actually lost their lives during this torture in the past. So we appeal to the workers of the world to raise voice against these oppressive measures by the Pakistani state and agencies, and extend solidarity. You can send emails, you can send protest messages, or make video messages and send to us, and that would be a huge important solidarity. You can also organize meetings and programs in your areas with your trade union, with workers in your factory or your department, or students around your campus, and can discuss these issues with 5, 10, or 20 people, whatever the number. So it would be a big sport for us, and we hope that we will be able to recover our comrade alive in this matter. Anyways, despite all these things, we are confident that our struggle will continue despite all the attacks of the state, of the ruling class, of the capitalist, and this rich poor divide, which is extremely widening every day. We can only be overcome through a socialist revolution in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adam, for that report. It is clear that the comrades are facing enormous difficulties, and yet they're progressing tremendously with the work. Pakistan is our largest section, and they're also helping to follow up with comrades in India, in Bangladesh. So this is very significant. And yes, again, I would like to stress the importance of for us as US socialists to participate in this campaign, share the campaign on social media. It makes a huge impact when we make these efforts from the United States, contact the US consulate and embassies, and sorry, Pakistan embassy in the US from a big imperialist country like the US. So please, comrades, take this seriously. We took a solidarity picture yesterday, but continue with the efforts, and let's demand the safe release of our comrade Ammar Fayyaz. With that, let's move on now to Comrade Chiara Gravisi from Sinistra Classe Rivoluzione, which is the Italian section of the International Marxist Tendency. So Chiara, whenever you're ready.
Hi everybody, and greetings from the Italian section of the IMT. And in Italy, there was a really deep coronavirus crisis. It was a sanitary emergency, but also an economical catastrophe. And data says that 38% of commercial activities could close before the end of 2020. And most important, there is an estimated loss of 841,000 jobs by the end of the year, despite the measures taken by the government. And this has had a huge effect on the consciousness of the worker. There was an important shift in the consciousness of the worker and young people, because everybody feels like the deaths of these months were totally unnecessary, and they feel like we are expendable. And the Italian section was able to react quickly to this situation, and this translated into the growth of our organization, which is now over 360 members. And we also have new branches in cities where in January we had maybe one or even 0 comrades. So these are very important developments for us. And in regards of young people, there is a vanguard open to revolutionary ideas. The government promised a safe return to school in September, where the academic years start every year. And in September, we covered 85 schools and spread 10,000 leaflets in favor of building youth committees in the schools and for measures to make school actually safe to be in. And of course, no measure was carried out by the government, and now schools are closed again due to the new wave of the coronavirus pandemic. We organized a national online students committee to organize students around a program, and we already discussed with many of them the necessity of the revolutionary party. And some of the students have already joined our section, and many more will. And we also started again the Marxist study groups. And the first one, last Friday, was inspired by the situation in the USA, and was about state, police, and revolution. And in regards of the workers, instead, our comrades launched a new trade union area on the left of the CGIL. It's the main Italian trade union. And together with a layer of workers that have seen and agree with our long-term work in the unions in the past years. And this was the result of our March campaign, Workers Are Not Cannon Fodder, during the pandemic. We had already many sectorial meetings like chain retailer workers, the school workers, healthcare workers, and in late October we had a national assembly of the area with 150 attendees, 50 of which were not our comrades. And this is really important because while the bosses are now even more merciless than in the first pandemic wave, trade unions bureaucracies are hesitant and act cowardly. The condition of the workers in Italy is getting worse and worse, and the few aids from the government are always late and insufficient. And even small business owners are struggling seriously. And this already caused some spontaneous mobilization in the past weeks, which are going to become more common in the next period. And in conclusion, as the Italian section, we are really positive about the next period, and we think that it will be rich with opportunities that we are ready to catch.
Thank you so much, Chiara. That was, again, a very inspiring report. And I think the work in the trade unions in particular, and the CGIL, is very inspiring for us and points the way forward for the kinds of work that we'll be doing in the trade union movement in the US in the future. So after Chiara, the next speaker is Ben Morken from the South African section of the IMT, Revolution South Africa. So Ben, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you guys. It's good to be here. Now the work in South Africa is still very new. South African group is still very new. We currently have 31 comrades. That's up from 6 in May, so it's quite steep growth. But as I said, it's a brand new group, but we already have managed to win over an entire group from the Eastern Cape in Eastern Cape province, comrades with students at the university, at 2 campuses at the university in East London. We also have comrades in Cape Town, in Pretoria, in Durban, in Bloemfontein. So it's spread all around the country. In South African conditions, this kind of thing is unpleasant in our situation. We can not only win over 1s and 2s, but entire groups because of the favorable objective conditions. But to win over the and retain and educate these people, we need the capacity to do so, and we have to build an apparatus. So that's so our focus now is to build the leadership of the group. Focus on developing the cadres, especially a leadership core. This will be vital for retaining all these people, which we get in touch with. To do that, we aim to build a center, form a center in the next coming period, possibly in Cape Town somewhere. And if we can do this, we will have the basis from which to build quantitatively and qualitatively. Our target is to have 100 comrades by May, and the comrades speak of very ambitious. They want to be like more than 250 by the end of next year. So we have our paper. A third edition of our paper comes out next week, called Revolution South Africa. So if you want to have a copy, get in touch with me or contact the Revolution South Africa Facebook page or whatever. Or yeah, just get in touch with me. I'll get in touch with. I'll sort you out. This is a big step forward for the work in South Africa. Because nothing like this exists in this country, and this is a giant step forward for not just building the group, but also to promote the ideas of Marxism in a country like South Africa. We also have a website. It's called Revolution. It's marxist.co.za, which you can also follow. And all of these things are a massive weapon to fight against the capitalist system in South Africa, and by implication the whole African continent, because South Africa is a very important country in the African continent as a whole. I would just like to say that it's so inspiring to see the work in the US. I've always got a lot of inspiration from the US section. Trotsky wrote that the US is a giant, but it's a giant of it's a colossus, but it's a giant with feet of clay, and we can see that in the current period. So a fight against U.S. imperialism and defeat of U.S. imperialism in the ex-colonial countries will weaken this giant even further. But it's up to the American comrades, the American working class, to fight in the belly of the beast, and to build a strong section of the international Marxist tendency. To take the fight to this beast and slay it once and for all. I think I take massive inspiration from you guys, and wish all the best and all the luck in the work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Also, very, very important developments in South Africa with a new group, very explosive growth, and that's right. We have great responsibility here in the U.S. Because we know that the best help we can provide to the ex-colonial countries, all the countries that are being crushed under the yoke of U.S. imperialism, is to have a revolution right here in our country. So next up is Joel Bergman from a little closer across the border from Fight Back La Riposte, which is the Canadian section of the IMT. Joel, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, comrades. I'd first like to congratulate you guys for this great school. I think it was fantastic. Great presentations, great interventions, high political level. Yeah, so to talk a bit about the Canadian section. Yeah, in English, we're known as Fight Back, and in French, we're known as La Riposte Socialiste. You can check out our websites at marxist.ca or marxist.qc.ca, where we have monthly papers. I encourage you to subscribe to those. So yeah, Ben mentioned that the comrades are doing great work in America in the belly of the beast, but Canadian imperialism has always been the little brother of America, going along benefiting off of all of the crimes and participating in many of them as well. So I believe that our work is equally as important, and that we can kind of work together and complement each other. So while Canada is generally referred to as the last bastion of liberalism, with our feminist Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the same process of radicalization and polarization is occurring here, and we can see it. This is caused by the crisis of capitalism, and it's been accelerated by the COVID pandemic. Well, it's been happening at a slower rate. It's still happening. And we've, over the years, the Canadian section, we've tapped into this anger with a wide layers of workers and youth looking for Marxist ideas, looking for revolutionary politics, for a solution, for a way out of this crisis. And we've seen a huge growth in our organization over the past few years, with hundreds and hundreds of people joining us. I remember when we were a tiny, small group, the smallest group on the left, and now we've grown to be the biggest Marxist group in the country. Currently, we have 367 members just as of this week. And the mainstay of this work has been student work. So we have campus clubs across the country on most campuses, or on a lot of campuses, under the banner of Socialist Fight Back Students. We focus on Marxist education. We hold events on revolutionary history, on the Marxist theory. And due to the COVID situation, we launched an initiative this fall, the most recent initiative, which was a Canadian Marxist university, where we had a series of online events in French, in English, in Canada being a big country, in Eastern, Western time zones, throughout the whole fall semester, which was a huge success. And we had over 1,000 people register and participate for this, which is a huge success. And many of these people are now joining the organization. So I think we are seeing a very explosive growth, and we will continue to see an explosive growth in Canada. In addition, as we know, we are not building a student organization. We're building a working class organization. So we have expanded our labor work, where we have many comrades in trade unions, especially in Toronto, but also in Montreal, the two biggest cities in the country, which is very important, where our goal is to bring back revolutionary and anti-capitalist ideas to the movement, militant ideas of class struggle, which have been all but lost and buried by the trade union bureaucrats who refuse to fight. And I believe we have successfully started a new tradition in this regard. In Toronto, we started the initiative with other groups and trade unions that we have members in, and we got on board. We started an anti-capitalist May Day rally, which was completely different than what has existed in Toronto in the past, where we had most of the major trade unions actually came on board with this initiative, and we had a big May Day rally. You can find information on our website about that, but on an openly against capitalism, for militant trade unionism and stuff like this. So it was a big success. Inspired by this, we did a similar initiative in Montreal this year, where we had an anti-capitalist Labor Day rally, which normally there isn't much that goes on Labor Day, but we actually ended up getting all the major trade unions in the city on board in this initiative, and several hundred people came out for this anti-capitalist Labor Day. So this is the way we're reviving those revolutionary ideas. Now, on the basis of this work, we've built up a solid base in the two major cities, in Toronto and Montreal, where we have offices, and we have really expanded all over the country as well. Now, I can't claim that we're in 60 cities as the comrades in America. The Canadian population is relatively concentrated in a few cities, mostly actually along the border connected with America. But yeah, we have expanded to other areas, especially, I think, most importantly in Alberta. And now, if you don't know, Alberta is like the Texas of Canada. It's the oil and it's the conservative right-wingers that are popular. But what's happened is, with the collapse of oil prices, everything is thrown into crisis. The right-wing government is attacking the workers. They're laying off, I believe, 15,000 healthcare workers in the middle of the pandemic. And this has led to huge radicalization, and we're expanding rapidly, where we've approximately doubled in size just in the past less than a year, actually, in several months. But we also have established branches in Victoria, Waterloo, Hamilton, and bases of comrades, where we have potential branches being formed, likely in Vancouver, Kelowna, Calgary, Grand Prairie, Ottawa, Quebec City, and Halifax. I am sure I am missing some, because we have people all over the place participating in meetings on Zoom, which is part of the good thing about this. So while we have made some advances, I think we're obviously still in the preparatory phase, which is one of education. And with this in mind, I would like to highlight a major initiative, and I would like to invite all of you to it. Every year, we organize a Montreal Marxist Winter School. I'm sure many of you have been there. And obviously, COVID complicates things. But we are going to be holding the school online in 2021. and I encourage you to all register, all to register. This past February, we had over 250 people register, and I hope that we have at least double, maybe even more than this meeting. And I hope that you all register and make it a big success. We're expanding it to 3 sessions. The link is posted in the chat. I hope you go and register right now. We'll have 10 sessions. You can see the list of the presentations there. Yeah, let's make this the largest and best Marxist event in Canada ever. And I think, yeah, I hope that you can all register. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up in a second, but I think that this is a fantastic situation that we have, comrades. But the moment won't seize itself. So I appeal to all of you, if you aren't a member, all of you, especially people from Canada, get in touch with us, get in touch with Fight Back. We're trying to organize the forces of Marxism in Canada. And I think that Canadian Marxists working hand in hand with our American comrades will be able to overthrow this rotten system. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Joel. And I think that the work of the Canadian section has been a great inspiration to us here in the United States. The fact that we have such strong branches in some of the major cities, which has allowed us to be the largest Marxist force in the country, and the large events that you've been able to organize. I think we definitely aspire to that here in the US. And I think once COVID ends, we're going to aim for, very, very strong in-person meetings, just like you're able to hold in Canada. But definitely, if you're interested, it's online. So it's a lot easier to attend this year than prior years where we would usually carpool to Montreal and stuff like that. So if you're in the US, make sure that you do plan to register for this winter event in Canada. With that, the next speaker is going to be Hubert Prévost from the French section of the IMT, Révolution. So, Hubert, you can take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you, even if I would prefer to be with you in real life. The Macron, the French president, since 2017, there's a very reactionary policy. But maybe it led to the Yellow Vest movement 2 years ago. It was a big and massive and a really profound movement. But last year, it also led to a big, massive strike last December of the railway workers against the pension reform. Of course, the pandemic temporarily stopped the course of the fight. But the catastrophic management of the pandemic will lead to new explosion. Because Macron, before he was elected president, was a member of the former socialist government, which closed several thousands of beds in the hospitals. And even now, the government continued to close hospitals. And all measures the government is taken are according to the interest of the businessmen. And all the government is doing set the condition to new explosion maybe earlier than we could think. Already several demonstrations from the health workers, but also the teachers are now they are on the move to strike again, and big struggles are on the agenda. And just after the effect of the lockdown are diminishing, we will have this explosion. Of course, the ruling class is trying to divide the population by stirring up hatred against Muslims, against Arabic people. And it could have some effect, temporary. But in June, some months ago, at the same time, you had Black Lives Matter movement in the United States. We also had big demos in all the big cities of the country. In 2 years, in 2022, we will have a big election, a presidential election, and this election will be very polarized, big polarization between the right and the left, and it's possible that Mélenchon, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, could be elected. Mélenchon is an ex-member of the Socialist Party. Now he's a left reformist. The Socialist Party is not the idea of socialists you could have. Now imagine that Macron was a member of the Socialist Party, but Macron is closer to Biden than any socialist or Lenin, of course. So through the election or through the struggle, we will enter, maybe sooner than we think, in a pre-revolutionary period. So the French section, it's a modest section with a big ambition, is getting ready to intervene to give a Marxist voice in these events, in the strikes, writing articles, interviews, selling the papers, in the demonstration, at the exit of the metro station, etc. But presently, our priority is the work among the youth, not only because the youth is radicalizing, but also because they want to understand and fight with full knowledge of the situation. And after a period, our ideas could seem too radical, too utopist. But now they are the only ideas who fit the reality, who could answer to the real situation. So every week we hold 3 or 4 online public discussions to discuss the ideas of Marxism, and we also have a lot of group every week, reading group every week. And as you experience in the last period in the United States, in spite of the lockdown, we grew and we continue to grow and attracting more and more people. So, but not like Macron, who gave his full support to Joe Biden. We bring all our support to the US working class, and especially to you, to the US section of the IMT. And we congratulate you for your magnificent work. I remember I was in New York City 3 or 4 years ago, just after Trump was elected. And now Trump is over, but you are still there, and much more people. Now the office in New York could be too small, no? You need now to maybe you could buy the Trump Tower. You could have a lot of office. We'll see. So no, seriously, I sent you the red salute from all the French comrades, and long live the socialist revolution. Long live socialist revolution. So red salute from the revolution. It's our paper. We have a paper. The last one. And long live IMT, and go forward, comrade.
Thank you so much, Hubert. And actually, when we first started establishing a branch in New York City, we did hold small meetings of the IMT in Trump Tower. So maybe give it a little bit of time, and when the working class seizes power, we can retool this building for proper usage. But thank you so much, Hubert. And the next speaker on stack that we have is Stefan Kangas from the Swedish section of the IMT, also called, actually, I'm sorry, you know what? I'm going to call on Caio first, and then we'll go to Stefan to mix things up a little. And so Caio de Zorzi, who is a comrade in the Brazilian section of the IMT, Esquerda Marxista. So go ahead, Caio.
Thank you, Laura. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, greetings from Brazil. First of all, I would like to congratulate Comrade Laura's introductory speech and the interventions of the comrades who preceded me. I begin to say that exactly today we are going through municipal elections here in Brazil. And in the short time I have here to speech, I would like to talk about it. You know, the bourgeois elections express, albeit in a distorted way, the class struggle. As you also know, the PT, Workers' Party, is the traditional party of the Brazilian working class, the party of Lula and Dilma. The workers and youth want change, but less and less they can see in the PT a real instrument of change. Even with Lula free to campaign on the streets, TV, and social networks, PT candidates are unable to take off. In addition to the PT not really fighting for the overthrow of Bolsonaro, the alliances it has made in hundreds of cities with bourgeois parties, including the extreme right, such as Social Liberal Party, the former party of Bolsonaro, account for its demoralization, PT demoralization. To the left of PT, there is PSOL, that is the party in which we operate inside since 2015. In Belém, the second biggest capital of Amazonic region with 1.5 million inhabitants, PSOL is leading the mayoral voting intention polls. In Rio de Janeiro, the second biggest city of Brazil, if the federal deputy, Marcelo Freixo, had not given up his candidacy for mayor, PSOL could have been in first place. He had already come to an agreement with PT leadership, but gave up, saying he would only be the candidate if he had the support of other parties, mainly parties of the so-called democratic bourgeoisie. So it was an opportunistic withdrawal that reflected a right reformist program. In São Paulo, the biggest city of Brazil with almost 13 million inhabitants, the candidate for mayor for PSOL, Guilherme Boulos, the leader of the homeless movement that was candidate for president in 2018, appears in second place in the polls, and probably tonight he will be confirmed in the second round. São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro are the country's political centers. These are the two largest cities and those that set the pace of class struggle. In these two large cities, the PT is demoralized and PSOL appears as a viable alternative. The growth of electoral support of PSOL in large political centers of the country, in particular among the youth, demonstrates the potential that socialist ideas have in the next period. However, this electoral growth of the PSOL is not due to the party leadership's policy, but despite it, in various small municipalities, PSOL formed coalitions with bourgeois parties. Thus, it follows the path of class conciliation and degeneration that led the PT to today's situation. Boulos is in favor of the broader alliance policy that the party leadership seeks to achieve. At the same time, he's seen by public opinion as a radical leftist. Bolsonaro, with his denialist and anti-scientific policies, led to a situation in which Brazil has suffered more than 160,000 deaths from the pandemic and seen many millions infected. Officially, there have been almost 6 million people infected, but usually a regular person can only get tested if they experience severe symptoms, which has obviously resulted in massive underreporting. Here in the city of São Paulo, there are over 1 million infected, according to official data, evidently underreported, and 40,000 dead. Boulos should be at the forefront of fighting for a lockdown and against reopening schools as long as there is no vaccine, but he hardly touches on the subject. He does not want to clash with the interests of the São Paulo bourgeoisie. Despite this, it's possible that Boulos will reach the mayor's seat. There are those here who say that the demoralization of the PT in Brazil and the potential of PSOL bear some similarities with the evolution of PASOK and Syriza in Greece a few years ago. Guilherme Boulos, is of Greek descent, and if he continues to follow the path of reformism, his trajectory may be more similar to that of Tsipras than he would like. We continue to struggle, presenting our own candidacies for PSOL in several cities, including in São Paulo, raising the slogan Bolsonaro out, and standing for the need for a socialist revolution in Brazil and in the world. Therefore, the action of each section of the IMT in each country, and mainly in the USA, inspires us and gives us strength to continue our fight. Congratulations for these events, and thank you all.
Thank you, obrigada, Caio. That was a great report, and also to highlight that the comrades there have been doing excellent work in the campaign to fight Bolsonaro, launching the slogan "Fora Bolsonaro" at a time when most on the left were actually demoralized and paralyzed by his election, and have very energetically launched campaigns in the student work and in the working class. So it's very inspiring to see. Thank you, comrade. Next up then, finally, is indeed Stefan Kangas from the Swedish section of the IMT, which is also called Revolution. Now, I don't know if there's a way that you pronounce that in Swedish, but Stefan Kangas from Revolution, go ahead.
Well, thank you, comrade, and revolutionary greetings on behalf of all the comrades in Sweden, and congratulations to this very successful event that I've been following along in. Talking about building the revolutionary organization in Sweden, I mean, we've been listening a little bit to a man called Bernie Sanders that you might have heard about, and this man is very happy about Sweden, clearly way more happy than anyone here is, even talking about socialist Sweden and Scandinavian style socialism. So that's a kind of style of socialism that you really have to put scare quotes around. Let me be the first to guarantee the US working class, or anyone who will listen in this meeting today at least, that the class struggle is very much alive and well in Sweden. And we are, of course, participating in it. The IMT in Sweden started as a small group, I mean, 10 years ago, but we've seen significant growth in the last couple of years. We have established a foothold with branches in the 3 biggest cities: Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, Lund area, and many other smaller cities that you probably haven't heard about either. But we have them organized in an online branch with the goal of establishing a more, properly functioning IMT branches in those areas. So our bread and butter is working with student work, Marxist students. And of course, because in universities, there's a lot of youth that are very open to our ideas that we can win to revolutionary Marxism. So it's an opportunity for us. But at the same time, I think it's been key for us to educate our comrades also in seeing things not from the eyes of the students' milieu and this environment that is very limited, actually, but from the eyes of the working class, and to understand the processes going on, not in the seminars, but in society as a whole. We are not a discussion group. We are a revolutionary, proletarian, working class Bolshevik organization. And we need to steal and educate our comrades in exactly that kind of attitude to the political work itself. For us, it's been very important to intervene. For example, when there's been strikes going on, we have a good ties to the dock workers here in Gothenburg. We're too small, really, to actually lead their work, but we have a certain amount of respect, because when they were involved in a very serious struggle a couple of years ago that could have seen, you know, the complete shutdown of all ports in all of Sweden was actually on the agenda. And look, this is like 15, not even 1,500 dock workers could literally have shut down the entire Swedish economy. And the capitalist press was frenzied. What is going on? This is going to cost us billions every single day that they are in strike. We were, of course, intervening. We went down, we talked to the dock workers, we had a chat with them, we invited them to our meetings. You know, we are trying to build a proletarian organization in this way. And I can tell you that the Swedish working class, of course, in the past, won big reforms, yes, on the basis of the post-war upswing. But all of that is now taken back. And the Marxists have always maintained that these reforms, they're important. We had free education. We still have free education. We have free healthcare. We have some things that would be very, very good for the US working class. Of course, people are going to feel inspired by that. But we explain that the reforms are only temporary as long as we live in a capitalist system. This is what is important. And this is all on the verge of being taken away from us, slowly but surely. Class inequality in Sweden has risen sharply. In fact, the country among the OECD countries where class inequality has risen the sharpest has been Sweden. So 2 people own as much wealth as half the population does combined. What kind of Scandinavian style socialism is that? That is capitalism. That is exactly what capitalism is, the concentration of the wealth in the hands of the few. So we have seen massive cuts, tax breaks, tax cuts for the rich. We've seen tax cuts for the big corporations. And we had 250,000 or 300,000 fewer people working in the welfare sector than used to be in the past. Of course, the welfare state is there, but the welfare state is, in fact, in crisis. The crisis of capitalism is the crisis of also reformism. Reformism, if someone presents that alternative in the US, let me tell you, Sweden is the country where it's been actually tried. Of course, it doesn't look very good on paper, but it also doesn't work very well in practice. That is what the message that I would like to give to you today. We actually need to struggle in Sweden, as you do in the US, to end capitalism if there's going to be any kind of future. And the youth is seeing that, and we are intervening. I don't have much time, but I can say the BLM movement in the US was hugely inspiring to Sweden. We had 8,000 people come out onto the streets. Our comrades, and they were met with a brutal response from the police. These are some of the most oppressed layers in society coming out, the children of immigrants that are speaking up against injustice, against police repression, and systematic abuse, also here in Sweden. And they were going in with force. And there was one young girl being interviewed in Swedish media saying, I thought Swedish police was different. Now I can see the Swedish police is actually exactly the same as the US police. Now, if that's true, I mean, that's another question, but it shows the development of consciousness. Our comrades were down there in these demonstrations, no leadership. There was no actual organizing behind this. So we show up, we start giving revolutionary speeches, and people start circling around our young comrades, presenting our revolutionary program in that manner. People are very open, very receptive to our ideas. The best are looking for a way out. They're looking for serious explanations. And look, we're not a big group. We can't lead mass struggles. We can, today struggle for the leadership of the labor movement, but we can provide explanations, so we can make sure that the best from these movements don't get demoralized when the movement fizzles out due to the limitations of the leadership, that they have maintained a perspective. Question is, what comes next? What comes next after the crisis of reformism? We used to get 50% in the polls. Now, in the elections, now I saw the polls, they got 24% just this week, the Swedish Social Democratic Party, which really is the strongest social democratic party probably on this planet, okay? 24%, that's all they could get during crisis. And this opens opportunities for us. And the Swedish Marxists are trying, to do everything in our power to really use these possibilities to the full, to participate and do our part in building the forces of revolutionary Marxism and building the international Marxist tendency. So we are very enthused by the successes of the US section, and we wish you all the luck. And together in our lifetime, we will be able to end the capitalist system and build socialism. That's it for me. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you so much, Stefan. That was wonderful. And thanks for pointing out, we definitely aren't large enough yet to start leading mass movements, but we are growing, and we can provide ideas that are very much sought after. And clearly, if we only had just a few more people in Sweden, those kinds of rallies where we get that kind of echo, that's precisely our role in those movements. And also thank you for debunking the myth of Scandinavian socialism. We can say Sweden is not socialist yet, but if we do our work right, soon enough, we will have a socialist Sweden. Thank you, comrade. And next on the stack is Nourdine Siani from Morocco, who is also leading the work of the basically Arab-speaking countries for the IMT. So go ahead, Nourdine.
Thank you. You hear me? Oh, hi, comrades. It's such an honor for me to speak at this historical activity. Congratulations for this very inspiring activity, and thank you for inviting me. First, I want to apologize for my terrible English accent, and I doubt if anyone can translate my English to real world English, but that is what. In the Middle East and North Africa, we are living through a moment of relative calm and even retreat of the mass movement that we have seen last few years. This is somehow normal, and we have explained it in many of our articles. Marxists know that revolutionary mass movements pass inevitably through periods of retreat and tiredness after big struggles, if there is no leadership and no organization. But nevertheless, this is not a bad situation from our point of view. On the contrary, the situation is characterized on one hand by a very deep crisis of capitalism, and austerity is the only response that governments have. The living conditions are worse than 10 years before. On the other hand, people, especially the youth, are searching for a way out and have questions that want to be answered. They are more open to the revolutionary ideas. So, this temporarily calm moment we are passing through is good for us to build our forces, the forces of the IMT. Because it's easier to build in a period of calm than in stormy periods. And indeed, we are seizing this opportunity to spread the ideas of Marxism and build the revolutionary organizations in preparation for the inevitable new rise of the class struggle. By the way, the masses in this region are not a crowd of fanatics or fundamentalists by nature, like the Western media likes to describe them. The working class in this region of the world had a very deep and great left-wing, revolutionary, and even communist traditions. That was the case in Iraq, Iran, Egypt, Yemen, Morocco, etc. If there is a rise of this ugly form of reaction, it's because of the crimes of the imperialists and their best friends in the region, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, etc., who created and financed these monsters. Sooner or later, the masses will rise again and will restore their revolutionary tradition. And we are doing our best to be ready when the moment comes. In this context, we are organizing a weekly Marxist discussion group with the participation of contacts from many key countries of the region. It's open group. We have a Facebook Marxist page that includes more than 19,800 members. Our website, marxi.com, which is the most successful Marxist website in the whole region, received 120,000 visits only this year from 54,000 visitors. In October alone, we had more than 13,000 visits from more than 5,700 visitors. Most visits are from Morocco, Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Tunisia, and Algeria, and that is significant in itself. Most read articles are Fukuyama's Second Thoughts, Socialism Ought to Come Back, with more than 10,700 visits, Bolshevism, The Road to Revolution, with 6,500 visits, The Idea of Karl Marx, more than 4,000 visits, and etc. This reflects that people are searching for the ideas and deep analysis. We are publishing a magazine every couple of months. The last issue of October, in its digital form, had 397 visits and 265 downloads. And in the same context of providing the theoretical arsenal to the next generation of fighters for socialism in the region, we have already translated Lenin and Trotsky, what they really stood for. And we have recently finished the translation of Bolshevism, The Road to Revolution, which will be published next month. Before closing my intervention, I want to assure you that the whole world is looking with great hope to the American working class struggles. And every step the US section of the IMT, take forward is one that humanity as a whole takes toward emancipation. Long live the IMT.
Thank you very much, Comrade. Thanks, Nordin, for that excellent report. And a lot of the countries you mentioned, yet again, areas of the world where US imperialism has totally wrecked and caused a great chaos, sectarianism, wars, but it's something that we can work on to make sure that we have a socialist revolution here, which will greatly help in the struggle for socialism in those countries as well. So the next up, we have Florian Keller from Der Funke, which is the Austrian section of the IMT. Florian, are you ready to speak?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me, and revolutionary greetings from all the comrades in Austria. Austria is a very small country in Europe, just under 9 million inhabitants. So maybe you don't know too much about Austria, but definitely the youth which is politically interested in Austria knows a lot about the US. Especially beginning with the movement around Sanders and the struggle against the Trump presidency in the last years. Very often when we discussed what is the best topic to connect with the politically interested youth and the revolutionary youth in Austria, we came to the conclusion, well, we should speak about the US. So I'm very pleased that I can speak to to comrades and friends of the organization in the USA about our experiences, because we saw this also in practice when Black Lives Matter, the movement kicked off in the US. There were also, like other comrades mentioned, also many demonstrations in many towns and cities all across Austria. The biggest one in Vienna had over 50,000 participants, and the crowd was very, very young and very radical. So for a long time, the bourgeoisie and the capitalists in Austria used racism to split the working class and the youth, and to build support for their parties. Chancellor Kurz's way to power, the conservative one who is now in power, was on playing on racism, and now he got an answer, sparking off from a movement which started off in the US. So the mood was very radical when we organized our big block in this demonstration. The most successful slogan, which connected the most with the youth going there, was "One Solution, Revolution," and that was really felt. But it also showed, this demonstration, why it is needed that there is a revolutionary socialist organization everywhere worldwide, but also in a country like Austria. Even though the youth who participated was very radical, the people who organized the demonstrations and who led the movement, leaders of social democracy, socialist youth, Green Party, so reformists and left liberals, so to speak, were very timid in what they said. Actually, when an activist of socialist youth who was on one of the main organizers spoke on national TV in a long interview about what the movement was all about and what could be done to end racism, he said, we need more black policemen, and we need anti-racist schools for policemen. So you can see how identity politics poisons every pore of Austrian politics in this respect. And also, so even though there is a workers' party, a social democracy in Austria, it's not enough to have a workers' party, but you need a workers' party with a revolutionary socialist program and a revolutionary socialist leadership to end capitalism and fight for our goals. With that not being the case, the leadership of the workers' movement in Austria is all about social partnership and working together with the bourgeoisie. So we know we have to build to do our part in ending capitalism worldwide, to build the IMT. And with that, we're quite successful. We had a lot of growth in the last period. Now we are active, or we have branches rather, in 2/3 of all the cities and towns over 100,000 inhabitants, which are actually only 6, but you can do the math for that. And we normally do, most of the work we do in our 16 branches is youth work, open youth work, trying to win over the revolutionary youth towards the Marxist program and the Marxist organization. Now, Austria is the #1 country with the most coronavirus cases in the last 7 days on the world. So all the schools and all the universities are closed again. We need to do our best to connect nonetheless, but we also see how the working class really has the power to end this capitalist oppression all on that. And we also did a lot of work in trying to win over the best workers and the most radical workers. We did a lot of work in social sector strikes, which developed. We intervened there with our own program and organized against the union leadership. We organized with the nurses in Vienna, who had a big movement, which won actually a year ago. One with our ideas, the ideas of Marxism, of trying to connect the struggle and to put pressure on the unions to support it. It was a so-called wildcat struggle. And we also intervene in a lot of cases of big industrial plants being closed down with the slogan to nationalize the plants under workers' control, as there's a very, very much growing unemployment now. So we are still relatively small. Although Austria is a small country, we need to grow more, and we will do that in the coming years with the knowledge that we have, that also in the belly of the beast, the struggle for socialism and revolution goes on. We're not alone. We have the international Marxist tendency to inspire us all over the world, which all the great reports did for me seriously. So congratulations to your fantastic school again, and good luck in killing off the dragon in its lair.
Thank you very much, Flo. Thanks for that report. We are getting to the end of our speaker list. We have 2 more speakers left. Next up will be Carlos Hernan, followed by Ben Glinetsky. So Carlos is an activist organizer who's helping to head off the work in Chile, a very important country in Latin America. So, head, Carlos.
Yeah. Hello? You hear me? Yes. So exactly, as you know, since last year, there have been important political developments in Chile since last October, to be precise. And in the past, we did have some isolated comrades and sympathizers, but it was not until these events happened in Chile that we were able to actually consolidate a group, an initial group, with comrades like myself, who I live in Montreal, but also with comrades and sympathizers in the ground, in Santiago, in Valparaíso, and in Arica, which is an important city in the northern part of Chile, in the border with Peru. So yeah, probably you've been aware, last October 2019, a big movement sparked, actually a insurrectionary mass movement that put in question, it was going against the whole regime inherited from the dictatorship. The main slogan was, it's not 30 pesos, it's 30 years. It was not about an isolated economic demand only, but it was against the whole regime. And on this, the protagonists were the youth, were the women, were the working class. We were not surprised, as we actually in the past years we have been following these events of especially the students, the women's movement, the Mapuche people, and many other important struggles. And then we also saw in this October rebellion, as we like to call it, we saw the development of self-organization organs, yeah, right? Like self-defense committees called Primera Línea. And we saw also assemblies, or cabildos, as they call it. And this is very important because it shows a genuine, a true, a real movement towards of political independence of the masses. And the highest point was the general strike of the 12th November, which was one of the most important general strike the country have seen in the past decades. And this forced actually the ruling class to agree a constituent assembly, which is a very important demand for the people, because this is a constitution that dates from the dictatorship. So naturally, we all hate this constitution, but at the same time, we must understand that it won't resolve any problem. And given these terrible circumstances for the regime, it was only a way out to from the crisis to save the institutions, the bourgeois institutions, from this movement. And yeah, this movement was advancing, getting some concessions, feeling more secure of its own demands, of its own means. But then the pandemic came, and it was a little bit strange for everyone. And yeah, in particular for our group during the pandemic, we had the International Marxist University, with like thousands of people connected. And it was also a big step forward for us. We got in contact with dozens of people interested in Chile. And since then, we have been publishing, writing articles, and this group, there is a handful of comrades who meets weekly, and there is a periphery of a few contacts who come regularly to our events. We do hold reading groups, reading the classic of Marxism, but also we hold discussions on current events, because people are very interested on having a Marxist analysis on current events, because things move so fast and sometimes can be very confusing. These whole maneuvers, especially of the reformists, they can be hard to understand, and they come to the Marxists to analyze, to discuss these events. And it is in that sense that the IMT in Chile with this group seeks to connect with those layers of society, as I mentioned, the youth, the women, the working class, who came out in mass in the scene of history to the streets to struggle, and to recover those new traditions or old traditions that we found in the last October, right? To the general strike, of self-organization, and to demand the end of this of the government of Piñera, and also for liberty for the imprisoned people, because there are still thousands of people in prison for revolting against this capitalist system. And it is in that sense that we are confident, because although we have a small group, our ideas, which are also the ideas, the traditions of the IMT, they do connect with a working class base. We have construction workers, miners in the public sector, health workers, teachers. These are the people that are in contact with us. These are the people who come to us and to discuss. So we're very confident again in to having the support as well of other Latin American sections. And also, it has been said, I will repeat it, we cannot exaggerate this enough, especially from a country as Chile, how important is the work in the United States for us. The work you will do there, the work you are doing, the work we are doing today. So if anyone there have not still joined Socialist Revolution, please do get in contact, read the articles, and yeah, great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, comrade. And that is absolutely very exciting to see these developments of the IMT in Chile. Absolutely a country where, as we know, the role the United States played, the CIA played in propping up a coup that implemented the dictatorship of Pinochet, which leads to, I mean, the movements that we're seeing today are a result of the role that imperialism played back then, and the dictatorship and the whole period. So very exciting to hear this. And this takes us to the last speaker, which is Ben Glinetsky of Socialist Appeal, the British section of the IMT. Comrade, please take it away.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, comrades. It's a pleasure to be here. The pandemic in Britain has created chaos for what was an already incompetent Tory government. And in the midst of that chaos, the capitalist class, the ruling class, is looking for someone that they can rely on. And Keir Starmer, the new leader of the Labour Party, is very enthusiastic about presenting himself as someone that the capitalist class can rely on. He's very much of the right wing, of the Blairite wing of the party. And in his zeal to prove himself a reliable representative of big business within the Labour Party, he has decided to most recently suspend Jeremy Corbyn from the Labour Party, as I'm sure many comrades are aware. And this is part of a broader attack on the left that has been continuing really from the day after he was elected leader of the Labour Party. And so the Marxists in Britain are fighting this and highlighting it above all for what it really is. It's shrouded, of course, in all kinds of mudslinging and smearing and all the rest of it. But what we're highlighting is that this is an attack on the left of the party, on that wing of the party that represents the interests of working class people most accurately at the present time, by the right wing of the party, who represents the interests of big business, the interests of capital within the Labour Party. And I would actually say that the Marxists are among the only people really, and then Socialist Appeal, the Marxists in the Labour Party are really the only people highlighting this fact. There has been a lot of weakness on the left in the Labour Party. There's been a lot of cowering in the face of the threats of the right wing to suspend people, to shut down local parties. And this is what the right wing is threatening. But in response to those threats, we need to stand up and fight back rather than accept it. And I would say that the role of Socialist Appeal in Britain at the moment within the Labour Party is to provide a bit of backbone. That's what we're trying to do, to be able to stand up against this very blatant attack on the left wing of the party. And so we have a presence in, I actually don't know the exact number, it's around 50 or 60 of the local Labour parties. There are 650 in total in the country. We have a presence in 50 or 60 of them, and we are pushing resolutions, trying to get them passed. In most cases, they're being blocked bureaucratically. They're refusing, the right wing are refusing to allow any kind of discussion on these questions, but doesn't stop us raising them. And we're generally making the case and trying to win people over to our ideas. And above all, we're making the case that you can't appease the right. They're trying to clear us out. They're suspending Jeremy Corbyn. They're trying to clear out the left of the party to make the Labour Party safe for capitalism. And so we say, you should be cleared out. We should clear the right wing out. The Labour Party needs to be a party of the working class. And this is the fight that is taking place at the moment that the Marxist tendency is throwing itself into. The economic crisis is obviously causing developments also on the trade union front in Britain. At the moment, there is an election on for the General Secretary position, the leader of the largest union in the country, which is called Unison, and predominantly a public sector union. And there is a very good left candidate in that election, someone who has spoken at Socialist Appeal events before, for example, and whose policies are very much to the left. He's a rank and file member of the union. And among other things, he has promised, for example, to take the average worker's wage if he is elected as leader of the union, which is quite a rare thing among trade union leaders, at least in Britain. I can't speak for other countries. And that he's entitled to a massive six-figure salary as the General Secretary of the union, but he's pledged to only take the worker's wage. And that has gone down an absolute storm with a large layer of the rank and file of the union. And his campaign is going very well. It's not clear who's going to win that election. The results will be announced, I think, towards the end of this month. But the members of the members of Unison, the members of this union who are also supporters of Socialist Appeal, are very active in his campaign. In particular, mobilising young people who are also members of the union, and in particular also on the social media front. And of course, we're linking these bits of these questions, linking this campaign to the ideas of Marxism. And we have Marxist caucuses also in other trade unions, in the Civil Servants Union and in the teachers and lecturers unions. There's a big ferment going on these fronts as well, and the Marxists are involved to one degree or another. And also, of course, the youth are the most radicalized layer of society. We have Marxist societies at around 40 universities around the country. And there's a lot of talk about rent strikes, for example, at the moment at universities, because the students are being locked down in inadequate accommodation, and so in many places they're threatening to strike on, and in some places they are actually striking and refusing to pay their rent. In Manchester, there's an occupation currently taking place over this question at the university, and our comrades are involved with that. As well as the universities, we're also now building up a presence at around a dozen schools. The Tories have recently banned any teaching around anti-capitalist themes in Britain, which is the best advert that we could possibly have asked for, because obviously you ban something for school students and they want to find out about it. And so this has given us a bit of an opening to put some of our ideas across to school students. And then just finally, and this is something that I'm particularly proud of, and the comrades in Britain are particularly proud of. Obviously, the working class in Britain, like in all countries, has very revolutionary traditions, which generally are buried, or they try, the ruling class attempts to bury them. In the first half of the 19th century, there was a movement known as Chartism, which some comrades have heard of, which was a movement of the working class, which really reached insurrectionary proportions. It's the first time it preempted Marxism. It was kind of anticipation of Marxism, and it was the first time that the working class in Britain became aware of itself as a revolutionary class and actually challenged for power. And Trotsky said that this was something. Is my sound all right? Yeah, okay. Trotsky said this was something that all revolutionaries in Britain needed to study, was the history of Chartism, and yet it is something on which there is very little material. And so we're really pleased that one of the leading comrades in Britain, Rob Sewell, has written a book about Chartism. It's taken quite a long time to produce, but we do now finally have a history of Chartism, which is not written by some sneering middle-class academic, but by someone who has actually been involved with the workers' movement over many decades, and has taken the time to research and write this history. And of course, it's been published by the publishing house of the International Marxist Tendency, Well-Read Books, and this was launched last month in October. So the comrades should, if you haven't read about Chartism, then you can find some extracts from the book and so on Marxist.com, and I would recommend it. I said I'm proud of this now because this is our history, not just in Britain, but it's the history of all the comrades of the International Marxist Tendency. And what we are doing in Britain, what the comrades are doing, and judging by this event and all the other reports that I've heard, the comrades in the US are doing extremely well, is trying to do justice to these revolutionary traditions that have been handed down to us. And I'm very optimistic seeing this event that we are going to do justice to those. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Comrade. And I think this was an excellent lineup. I think this really gave us a taste of what the IMT is doing across the whole world. A lot of other sections that are doing excellent work that we weren't able to invite. And that gives us a picture of the kind of work that we will be carrying out in the United States in the not too distant future that we need to prepare for. There's not too much more to add after this great event. But I do want to make an appeal, because you can imagine that this kind of work we're building in all these countries, a lot of new sections being established, this comes at a price. And the kind of resources that we need in order to build a truly international organization are large resources. And so I want to make a very serious appeal to you that if you're able to donate any amount of money to the cause of international socialism, this will go a great way in helping us with this. Every dollar that we are able to raise here is going to help not just the building of the forces of Marxism in the US, but it's going to help building of the forces of Marxism in Pakistan, in Venezuela, in Indonesia, and in numerous other countries where, by the way, the US currency has a lot more weight. And so any amount that you can give extra here from the United States will make a big impact in a lot of these countries. I think that the report from the comrades in Pakistan really helped to put things into perspective too, in terms of the kinds of sacrifices that they have to make, where even just being active in the movement puts you at risk of losing your life. And so I think that whatever sacrifices we can do on our end, and financial sacrifices, of course, it's not easy, but it does provide, with the funds that we can raise here, we will use that to help the comrades in Pakistan with their struggle and many, many other countries. So the link should be posted in the chat if you would like to donate. There is a link to donate from our website. You can also, if you use Venmo, if you're in the US, you can send money directly to our Venmo account. And we do have a public campaign actually to raise $10,000 by the end of the year. If you click on our donate link, you will see we have gotten more or less halfway through our campaign. So, give it one last push. We received a lot of donations from comrades and sympathizers who signed up for this event, which, by the way, it was very much appreciated, and it was a significant sum of money. But if we get just a little more, we can tip the balance and make it to our goal before the end of the year. So again, this is a very, very serious appeal that we're making so we can build the forces of international proletarian revolution, which is the only cause that is worth sacrificing and struggling for in this historic moment. And just to finish up, comrades, we've been seeing that the ideas of Marxism are growing worldwide. More people than ever before are turning to these ideas. This hasn't always been this way. There has been a time, not so long ago in the United States, but also worldwide, where we were swimming against the stream. And it was hard to find one or two people interested in and who weren't hostile to the ideas of socialism. That is no longer the case. So we must be extremely optimistic for the future of the socialist movement. At the same time, I would like to emphasize what Joel said earlier, which is that capitalism will not overthrow itself. 2020 has made it very clear that the choices before humanity are socialism or barbarism. So it is a race against time. If you aren't yet organized, make sure that you join the International Marxist Tendency, get in contact with us, and let's fight for a socialist future, comrades. So with that, let's finish this meeting with singing of the Internationale and Bandiera Rossa.